Hello class, in today's video we're going to be looking at polymers. Now there are four key parts to today's lesson. So firstly, I'm going to be talking to you guys what are polymers, how are they produced and its significance. I'm then going to be talking about how is this particular topic related to your CAT and what will you be doing in today's CAT. I'll then talk about how you're going to be presenting your findings in the structure of an informative report. And lastly, I'm going to be discussing how you're going to be finding information, where to find information, and how to actually reference of where you obtained your actual information from. So firstly, what are polymers? So polymers are these large molecules over here that is made up of many repeating subunits, which we refer to as monomers. So in my first diagram over here, this is just a very basic diagram, but if my monomer is made up of these three atoms over here, in order for you to create a polymer, all you really need to do is pretty much just have another monomer and then just pretty much glue them or link them together. So if you continuously do this, you're going to create a long chain that is made up of monomers, and this long chain is what we refer to as a polymer. In this example over here, I've got the actual chemical structure, the structural formula of an ethene molecule. We know this is an ethene because this is C2H4, and as you can see, it's an alkene because it has a double bond. As you can see in this example over here, if you've got three or more alkenes that are linked together, what you form is you form this complex long chain, which we refer to as a polymer, but the specific name for this specific example is called a polyethene molecule in this case over here. And polymers don't necessarily have to be just a continuous single chain. They could actually have complex branches as well. Now, as I said beforehand, polymers are created by adding and linking these subunits, which we refer to as monomers together, and this process is referred to as polymerization. So I've already previously shown you this over here, but another way to represent the polymerization for the ethene molecule is by writing just one single ethene molecule and then having the letter N in front. And N represents any number. It could be made up of like 100 molecules, 1,000, 200,000, any infinite amount, and that N is also represented here to indicate that this could be added on continuously in this case of here. So this is a general way of how you could actually represent the polymerization reaction for a particular monomer. This is probably a better diagram over here because this shows you how this actually works. So notice that in this particular GIF over here, that the double bond present in each ethene molecule pretty much opens up, and as a result, now carbon is able to bond to another atom. So as a result of that, they pretty much link together, and therefore they create this long chain, which we refer to as a polymer. Now, while we study and while we look at polymers is quite important because polymers are actually found in everyday lives. They make up these important materials that we use, such as plastics. They're not just limited to plastics though, but as you can see over here, polymers are required to actually make these, and there are many different types of polymers, some which have very useful properties such as they're flexible, they're lightweight, and they're very durable as well. Other things would include like they're insulators to electricity and stuff like that. And polymers can actually be naturally sourced, meaning that they can be found readily available in nature, or we have to actually make them by man-made. So that's what we mean by synthetically made in this case over here. Now, there are two main categories or types of polymerization reactions, and the word polymerization is just a general term that we use to describe how polymers are made. But as I said, there are specific types of polymerization reactions, which is just dependent on what type of monomer that you have present. So for instance, the two main types of polymerization reactions is the addition reaction or the addition polymerization reaction. So the addition polymerization reaction is pretty much shown over here. So creating polyethylene is created through an addition polymerization where the double bonds opens up and then the subunits pretty much connect together. That's what happens in an addition polymerization reaction. A condensation polymerization kind of works in a very similar manner, but the only difference is that it also spits out a small molecule, and that small molecule is generally going to be water, but it's not limited to water. So in this case, if you notice that this molecule is just ejecting out each time the subunits link together. So this is what happens in a condensation polymerization reaction. So some of the polymers that you will be investigating in today's particular CAT is shown over here. So you've got a list of natural polymers as well as synthetic polymers. You're not going to be required to look at all of them, but the ones that I've kind of put as an asterisk, I think it's a bit more easier to find information. So this is what I recommend, but obviously you can choose whatever polymer you like. So now I want to be discussing what are you going to be doing in today's CAT. So the purpose of today's CAT is for you to demonstrate your understanding of polymers and the chemistry behind the formation, so how it's made and what monomers is required, as well as stating its uses and functions in everyday life. The way that you're going to be writing up this report is you're going to be actually writing this either in a Google Docs or in a Google Slides, okay? And the word count for this is going to be 700 words, and you'll find that it's quite easy to actually exceed this, and there is going to be no limit. As long as you just go over 700 words, you should be fine. I do want to clarify that you are writing an informative report, not a laboratory report. As a result of this, the structure is going to be a bit different, and I'm going to soon explain the differences in terms of the structure. Now, in an informative report, as given by its name, what you're doing is you're providing information, okay? So you're providing information by conducting research off the internet and everything like that. So how are you going to be representing and presenting your findings? Now, the way that you would be writing your particular report will follow this particular manner over here. What you'll do first is you're going to be giving an introduction, and I'll tell you guys what you need to include in your introduction. What you need to then do is, out of this list over here, you need to choose 4 polymers in total. 2 of the polymers must be a natural polymer and the other 2 must be a synthetic polymer. Okay, so choose from the table that I have on the right hand side, and then what you do afterwards is then you're going to be talking about the issues related to using polymers, and then finally write a conclusion which pretty much summarizes what you've been discussing throughout your whole presentation. So let me go into a bit more detail as to what you need to include in your introduction. So in your introduction, you're going to be discussing these 4 dot points over here. You're going to be talking about what are polymers. So I've got some notes before, but you're not going to be using this in your answer. I want you to find off the internet to get your answer. You're then going to be talking about how polymers are made in general. So this is created through a polymerization. Talk about what a polymerization is, and it's really helpful that you do include diagrams. And when you do include diagrams, it's always important that you actually refer to diagram to actually support your explanation. It's not good enough if you just included the diagram or picture but not talk about it. It's like, what's the point then? So then after you do that, then talk about what is the difference between the natural and synthetic polymers. So one is man-made, one is readily attained in nature, and then provide an overview on the importance of polymers on everyday life. So why do we use polymers? What's the importance of like putting research into this specific field in chemistry? After you've done that, then you can then talk about each polymer. So each polymer will have its own subheading or its own paragraph. And for each of those paragraphs, what you need to talk about is the formation. So what I mean by the formation is what monomer, what's the specific name of the monomer that was required to create that particular polymer, and what kind of reaction does it go through? Does it go through an addition reaction? Does it go through a condensation polymerization reaction? And then if you can, then diagrams are really helpful if you can actually include this. So include the chemical structure if it's possible. And then what you need to talk about is the properties of the polymer. So talk about the properties and relate the properties to its uses. So like what specific part of that chemical structure gives its properties that allows it to be used in this specific way. Something along the lines of that if you can. So that would be really great if you could do this for each type of polymer. So remember, 2 natural polymers and then 2 synthetic polymers as well. And if you do this, this should probably take you maybe, let's say, at most 200 words for each paragraph for these 4 paragraphs over here. I don't really want that much words at all. So you're just going to kind of go and briefly talk about these 3 things over here for each paragraph. Once you've done that, then you're going to be talking about the issue that arises due to the extensive, meaning the long-term use of polymers. And I want you to think about these 4 or 5 categories over here. So think about waste disposal, think about the ecosystem. So how does it affect like, animals or the plants? How does that affect the environment, specifically about like landfill accumulation, stuff like that? And then explain how these issues will be addressed or are currently being addressed at the moment. And if you can, diagrams are always helpful to support your research. And then afterwards, explain the importance of developing polymers. So Pretty much the answer of this is we create polymers to reduce these environmental impacts. So the reason is that some of these synthetic or natural polymers do cause harm to the environment, and because of that, we're trying to find other ways or find other alternatives that reduces this. That's why there's a lot of research and money that's being spent in this field at the moment. And afterwards, all you really need to do is just conclude your report by stating again the importance of polymers, just briefly mentioning its use and properties, then stating what the issues are. So again, just summarizing that, and then finally talk about why is polymers so important and why research is going on for this particular field over here. Now, the last thing that I want to talk about in today's lesson is how you're going to be finding information and referencing it in your report. So firstly, how are you finding information? Firstly, any place that you get your information from other than Wikipedia is considered to be a decent website, okay? But if you want to find really accurate information, the best places is where you find peer-reviewed articles, okay? So these are like your journal articles, and they're highly credible because this is considered to be a primary source. These people did the actual research themselves, and because of that, this is going to be a very highly reputable, credible source. However, if you obtain your information from websites, which is still a decent source, this is a secondary source, and these are less credible because they rely and they summarize findings from the journal articles, but then they might be cutting up bits and pieces or misinterpreting the journal article. As a result, they're going to be less credible, okay? So, but I do want to mention that the language and text found in these peer-reviewed articles, also aka the primary sources, are complex and hard to comprehend. So because these are hard to comprehend, I don't really mind you actually using information found from websites, because the text found from websites, they're a bit more manageable and easier to interpret and understand as opposed to the language that scholars often use, okay, which are found in peer-reviewed sources. So I've got an example over here. Let's just say that for one of the polymers that you want to study or research, you're looking at silk, okay? And I've obtained this particular, I've just pretty much cropped and screenshot one particular paragraph from this particular journal article or this website over here. And I'm trying to find out how is silk being formed. In this case, if you look at this sentence, it says that silk is actually formed from amino acids. So the amino acids are the building blocks. These are the actual subunits or the monomers. So if I was to write my own report, I'd write something similar to this. I'd say silk is a large natural polymer that is made from amino acids. The amino acids are these monomers or subunits that make up silk, which are then linked together via a something reaction. So I still need to do more research to find out what this information is, but I've already found out that silk is made from amino acids. So what I need to do after I've actually wrote my sentence is I actually need to include something referred to as an in-text citation, okay? And this is going to be extremely relevant in VCE, particularly more relevant in university. So it's a really good to have this ability and skill, because many people don't actually know how to reference. So I'm going to show you how I do it. And the website I use is this one over here. And all you really need to do is pretty much copy the URL, the website, into this generator, and it will do it for you. And you just need to copy and paste. So once what you do is go on this website over here and then pretty much insert copy and paste the website that you use to obtain information. If you do that, you're going to get something similar to this over here, okay? And it will auto generate. Click on continue, and then it will take you to another page. Click on continue or finish, and once you do that, then it will be automatically generated for you. So in this case, if you notice that it's got the in-text citation, so all I do is pretty much copy and paste that into this part of here, which is how I've got this in-text citation, guys, okay? So it's quite simple. All you do is copy and paste into this website, and it'll do it all automatically for you. Now, when you do write a report, or any report for that matter, you need both in-text citations as well as your bibliography, aka your references. So at the end, so after your conclusion, you need to actually show what websites you've been on. So the way that you do this is pretty much copy the bibliography to this, and that's all you'll be doing. Pretty much the end of today's video. I will be in the call, so please stay in the call so I can give you live feedback to assist you with your report. The due date is not announced yet, but you're going to be given, let's say, around 2 weeks to complete this in class time as well. So you've got plenty of time to actually work on this, and This, as I said, this is actually quite easy to find because the information is readily obtainable through the internet, but please make sure you are writing your own words because plagiarism is a serious crime and you will automatically fail if you do plagiarize. That's all for today. Thanks for watching.